Do you mind if I don't record?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, everyone.
Okay, that's extremely helpful, but you're not using a standardized intake assessment. Does that also mean that your funding is not correlated to assessment-based gains?
We are required to be able to demonstrate that our learners are progressing through our curriculum framework, and that's done through a different type of assessment. We call them milestone tasks. They are pre-described by the funder. They are required for us to use. We can't alter them or change them. They are standardized, but they are not, they're more of a checkpoint of how the learner's doing, and if they're ready to move forward, that's how they were designed to be used. They weren't designed as an entry assessment or a gains assessment or anything like that.
Okay. That helps.
Are the milestone tasks academic, or are they more task-based?
They're task-based, and they have different ones depending on what the learner's goal path is. So we have 5 different streams that we serve. So people that are working towards employment, apprenticeship, secondary credit, post-secondary, so on and so forth, are independents. And so they kind of try to tailor make what types of documents they're looking at or the types of tasks that they're completing in that assessment based on whatever their end goal is.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, Matt, did you want to?
So does the so what you just described a minute ago, that's true of the Learning Hub. Is that also true of the Good Learning Anywhere, the way it works, the flow?
Yeah, we're very similar with how we operate. We do things a little differently, but yeah, for the most part, it's very similar.
Okay.
So just from a curiosity standpoint, you've all had your demo accounts. So how has that gone, so far? I mean, what are your thoughts around what you've seen? Those kinds of things.
I'll jump in for a second. I know that in the past, this group has been very concerned with need for lower level content. And sometimes they've tried to develop customized content themselves, but it's, of course, as you know, very resource consumptive to do that. And resources aren't necessarily forthcoming from the funder. So I have focused all of the maybe I've spent an hour or so, Mitch, you'd be able to see, or sorry, Matt, you'd be able to see, and it's all been in that foundational level, because that's where I thought the groups might first take a look. And I was, I suppose, distressed with my own skills in navigating some of the pre-tests, etc. But I was pleased to see the variety of tools in terms of the different response types, using the audio to have questions or content read and so on, and didn't perceive any glitches. I did that, I think, on Mac OS at that time. I was thinking I'd also like to try it on mobile, but I haven't been able to yet. So
when you
the rest of you,
when you say lower level, Sarah, what grade level equivalency are you referring to? Kindergarten numeracy for adults, or 3rd grade reading level for adults?
I think, again, I'll turn to my colleagues to better articulate that. But for those who are at a beginning level, perhaps in their, whether it be reading or anything else, or in their numeracy skills. And yes, I suppose that could equate to kindergarten level, but because we're speaking about adults, we try to avoid that kind of terminology, I think. Anyone else?
Vanessa, do you want to say something just around the levels, like around like
Sure.
the correlation? I know between US and Canada, it's probably a little bit different, but you might be able to speak to the grade levels in Canada a bit better than me.
Um, I will say we have quite a wide range of learners that come into our program specifically. So we have learners, because our program is attached to a school board, we have some learners that are coming in, perhaps maybe they've done a different kind of pathway in their previous life and now are kind of reestablishing in a new career or want to take a new career path and have to go back to college or gain some new skills. So sometimes their English levels may be higher, but they're maybe getting something that's more in the health center, right? So they have to brush up on their math skills and their science, right? So we have some of those, and then we have learners that are coming in that potentially are new to Canada, and so their language skills, even though they have higher level cognitive and thinking skills, being able to translate that into English is sometimes a barrier. So they're too high for potentially that ESL level, and they're transitioning into the LBS world. So that can be a really challenging kind of transition. We also have learners that have a lot of other barriers to learning, whether that be learning disabilities, physical disabilities, and accident, things like that. So the repetition and stuff like that for those lower level learners is key. So I would say it's a really wide span. I would say probably around grade 3 and up would be a kind of accurate picture, and it would depend, but know that they're not coming to go through necessarily all the content, where for us, some may work through a variety of different areas within our curriculum base. I know that's as vague as it can be.
No, I mean, well, you're describing the exact same thing as the US and quite frankly, most of Europe and India and yeah. So are you looking for, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what are you looking for?
So I think for the hub, we're looking for some of those core basic principles where they can learn the fundamentals and have enough practice at those skills and repetition to be able to be successful, to internalize those concepts so that they can move on to more complex things, is what my kind of wish is.
In a blending of workforce competency and academics?
Yeah, I think we have both, but like I think like if you're teaching math kind of in that generic way, it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to employment, right? If they can learn how to do kind of those basic fractions or those basic multiplication division, that we can work towards kind of creating some other tasks or other curriculum that we have available that focuses more on that workplace level if we have to.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yes.
completely.
So in a lot of the adult ed programs I work with, it varies from the 78-year-old grandmother who comes in because she wants to learn how to read better so she can read books to her great grandchildren, to someone who comes in who's like, I need to get my GED because I'm trying to get a promotion at work and I need to have that. I need to have that to be able to go do the next step, right? And you have then everything in between. And so it sounds like you're having the same thing. And then in addition to that, especially now with what's going on with employment and everything, everyone needs to have, how do we take all these skills that we're learning and how do we apply those in the real world, the world of work and the world of our lives and budgeting and just all those things. So that's what it sounds like to me. So
It is.
Is that okay? All right, good.
Yeah. So it's always nice to root. So even though they're learning those core concepts, to bring it back into like, this is where you're going to see it in real life and apply it that way is basically the whole stem of why LBS is here.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I wonder if I could draw everyone's attention to the chat because Julie has been able to make some comments there in response to your question, Matt, about doing some work in the demo account. I think you can see those comments for yourself and
Yeah.
Julie's questions. Any answers you can give in response? Once a learner takes a locator, such as the math one, are these educators giving some type of a score that correlates to a leveling?
Yeah, let me jump in before Matt explains the locator piece. Are all of you familiar with how the US does adult ed? Okay, so let me give you a 15-second overview. The US Department of Ed has a leveled system of 1 through 6. 1 starts at what, the adult grade level equivalency of 0, phonemic awareness. And then it goes all the way up to where 5 and 6 are part of high school level coursework, academic coursework. So the Aztec series are leveled to that 6-level system, where the GED that you have access to is those 2 higher levels, and then fundamentals, foundations, and bridge span the 4 lower levels. And the way that funding works in the US is that, and it's different in all 50 states and 7 territories. Where I'm sitting in California, a school gets paid for every point gain a student makes on a nationally adopted test. So, for example, California uses the CASAS test, which is a competency-driven test. If a student goes from a 185 to a 190, that school gets a check for $375 for that student gain. So the Aztec system is driven by those levels, but that's why I was asking before about where your students generally fall, because that equates to how the locator test would be used with your system of figuring out reading, writing, literacy, numeracy for your students. So with that, I'll let Matt take over answering.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, I mean, it's from the Aztec Locator series. I mean, that again is our proprietary assessment. So we've had, situations over here in the US, especially with COVID, when students weren't allowed to take CASAS or TAPE online. A lot of these institutions and clients we work with were using the Aztec Locator series. So basically what that was allowing them to do was to place those students in the correct series based on how they've scored on that locator test. So whether they're in fundamentals, foundations, bridge, or they're at that. So when we talk GED, we're talking grade level 9, 10, 11, 12, basically is what we're talking. So I think that answers Vanessa's question that she had there. So because again, we speak with GED and so on and so forth. So I want to make sure that over there, it's a little bit different as far as grade levels go and so on and so forth. So that's how, that works. As far as like I don't know, I think there was something that related, maybe somebody brought up as far as like a customization to that. Was that something that somebody had brought up, for the locator series? Because you've obviously spent a little bit of time in there, kind of playing around with it a little bit. That would be something that we would have to kind of check into to see if we could kind of customize it based around, what your requirements are as it pertains to Ontario's, framework alignment and so on and so forth.
But it sounds like y'all are doing very similar to what we're doing in the US, and that is
exactly.
we have students that are on all these different levels, and students that come in, and even a single student, I have different levels of proficiency in math than I do in reading, right? Because it depends on what I'm used to and what I'm good at. And even though I was on the math team in high school and I took calculus back then, please don't ask me to do anything in math right now because it would not be pretty and Mitch would laugh at me and that's not good. So, but what we got to do is figure out I guess where we're kind of coming from is we have to be able to serve everybody when they walk in the door, no matter where they fall, what level they fall, or what gaps they have. And people can have interesting gaps. Like I have crazy gaps in my education background because my father was in the military and we moved. I went to 16 different schools before I graduated high school. We found out later I got some of the same semester of math over and then I missed other ones. So we all have interesting gaps, right? So what the software is going to allow us to do is figure, no matter what level they're on, we're going to be able to figure out where their gaps are and then have instruction to meet those gaps to bring them up to level, right? And then if they finish a level, go up to the next level. So I think the biggest takeaway is that continuum of learning that goes from basically, and Sarah, I try not to say kindergarten either. I say 0.0 up through 12.9 and beyond, right? So, and address all those skills. So even if we have an adult and we're very we're adult education publishers, so we don't develop materials for the K-12 side of the house. We let the K-12 publishers do that. Everything we create specifically for older youth and adults. So even though someone may be reading on a first grade reading level, we're still going to be teaching them with examples and information that's geared specifically and developed specifically for older youth and adults. So we don't have, you know, pink bunnies with dazzly eyes. we have more, we're going to talk about work and things like that. Although the pink bunny would be fun, we really want to focus on the work stuff and make sure they have an understanding of not only the skill, but also how that skill, now that they've got that skill, you know, what do we do with that in the world of work? Because isn't it interesting? I always find it fascinating with percentages, for example. Have you ever been in a department store and you hear people around a rack of clothes that today they're 50% off, but today it's an additional 25% off. And I overhear people making those calculations and they're making them incorrectly. And I have to stop myself from going over and having that teachable moment, because you're like, oh no, I want to show you how to do it. But that's kind of where we're coming from with our continuum of learning, making sure we're covering everything, all those gaps, being able to identify what those are and then meet those for the students and move them up through the levels, whatever that may be. It may be all the way up to the GED, but it may be just that 78-year-old grandmother who wants to learn to get to the 4th or 5th grade reading level so she can read books to her great-grandchildren. Does that help a little bit?
Thanks, Deanna. I think so. I'm just going back to another of Julie's questions about customizing, I guess, kind of the learning plan based on what's recommended. So you can see Julie's wondering about the ability to customize. So learners do complete what they need to without having to do more. Now, I had the sense from the demo, the little bit that I did, that if I had done pretty well, it was probably going to tell my instructor that I could move on. But perhaps you could describe that a little more in response to Julie.
Yeah, so sorry, I was on mute trying to talk, and my twins are kind of going crazy up here right now. So I've got a lot of noise in the background, so I apologize for that. But you know, anyways, yes, you're exactly right, Sarah. So from the standpoint of, you know, what'll happen is the student, based on that pre-test, you know, assessment, they'll be able to start to create that individualized learning plan. So, and based on those scores, you know, out of the pre-test, they may be waived from certain areas, you know, within, you know, that particular group of lessons, so to speak. You know, you also have the ability to, you know, create custom classes, you know, off the bat, if that's something you want to do. So part of the one thing that we do, besides, you know, such great customer service, and is what we're known for, is you, like I talked about last time, you'll be assigned a field service representative. That field service representative will, in the initial onboarding and training, talk to you about how you can create a custom course and talk to you about what your needs are. So if you want to pull certain content out of a certain area, you'll be able to have the flexibility to do that, just so you know. And then the other thing is, you know, what we need to kind of figure out too is, you know, the teachers can make changes to assignments. And then what we need is, you know, to kind of talk about, you know, again, that crosswalk and how that's going to fit into place. Deanna, did you have something you wanted to add? I'm sorry.
No, so I have a question for you. So if, say you wanted to go the route and create some customized classes, is there a document that kind of has what those milestones test, for example, that we could look at and do some figuring out what lessons are assigned, you know, what lessons kind of go with what milestones? Is that kind of what you're looking for, maybe?
I think we had a similar question, Vanessa, when we were asking about a course catalog, and
Yep.
just wondering, within all the different silos of curriculum that you guys have, is there kind of like, doesn't have to go into great depth as far as learning outcomes, but even is there just like by like the foundations, X, Y, and Z are covered, and just so that we had kind of even just topic headings to go by, just to see if it had the same kind of material that we are familiar with using, I guess.
Absolutely. Do you use the literacy framework for Ontario?
The OALCF,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I would think that we could easily either come up with a list of all the lessons, we already have that, for
Yeah.
each series and what's
Mhm.
covered, or a crosswalk between the OALCF and all of our lessons. Because as Matt said, then an FSR, our field service team, could custom create courses for you, or they could work with you to create individual courses for each student based on whatever intake assessment is being utilized to benchmark their intake and then their milestones.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe before we go into that crosswalk level of detail exercise, like could we just, even for the foundations, for example, or I don't want to speak for the group, there might be other ones that were of great interest, but just to see kind of under the surface what topics are being covered.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the learning plan, like you have those kind of units in it, right? And then when you open it up, it has those topics, right?
Correct.
Which kind of gives you a better idea of where you're lying. Now, I did have one question. So if they do the locator test, which tells them which stream they're in, so say it tells you that you have to be part of, I don't know, fundamentals, let's say. My question is, in our demo ones, are those all the content that's available for that? Or is there more in that? This is just a demo. Like I'm trying to get a feel for what we're looking at exactly.
Yeah, so you have access to the complete locator series. So
Okay.
that's, as far as that assessment, that proprietary assessment that we have, that's
Mhm.
exactly what the student would take.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to make sure that because I was thinking in terms of like, what was the one? I think it was the life skills one, right? And so maybe not every person would need necessarily, like, I don't know, the military life one, right? In
exactly.
Canada, right? So it's like, if we were to prescribe to that, do we have controls? Like, do our instructors add those students into there and they can take out those units?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. So you will have full control and the ability to create, just taking life skills as an example. You can create a custom course all around life skills.
okay.
So life skills has 225 different topics in it. So
Then you just pick out what you
Yeah.
want.
But
Okay.
if you don't mind, I wanted to show you a document. If I could share my screen for a second.
Yeah, for
Let me
sure.
just make sure
I don't know who
Mine
has
is-
the authority
My
to.
mic working now? Sorry.
Yes,
you
it
should be
is,
able to.
Julie.
Okay. I just wanted to tag on before you do your screen share. I just wanted to tag on what Vanessa was saying with the locator series. Because I did complete the 3 quickly, right? Obviously, and I got placed into fundamentals in each one. So is that like the person who takes that is not automatically assigned lessons? As an instructor, you then have to go in
Right.
to
Right.
assign it to them.
Exactly.
The locator
And-
meant to give instructors information about student leveling and student performance. It doesn't automatically assign a student. It's an information gathering tool for the instructor.
Okay.
Perfect. That's good. It's good to know because some systems automatically assign things then, right? And it's like, woo, I wasn't going to go in that
Right,
direction.
exactly. No, right.
This is not McGraw-Hill's Alex platform. No.
Oh my goodness. Right. I used to work for McGraw-Hill too, so I know the Alex platform. It's pretty complex.
So I was gonna, if I could share, I just wanted you to see.
I think
this
you
is-
have the option
document.
now. Oh,
I
sorry,
do.
I have, sorry, now you should be able to.
Okay, this is not necessarily the document that we would send you, but I wanted you to see the types of documents that we could put together. So this is a series that we came out with at the start of the pandemic, where everybody was shifting to distance learning and everybody was freaking out. So most of this document is how to run a distance learning program on Aztec, but this is for fundamentals. Because Vanessa mentioned it. And at the end, what it does is gives you all of the lessons and the content of each lesson at the fundamentals level series. And we built this one for programs who wanted to actually keep a paper record of student progress. But this can be reconfigured any way that you would need it, where you have the introduction of the topic and then the actual lessons and the drills that are associated with each of the substandards, across the entire series. And we have these for each of the programs that Aztec has. So we can break this out in any way that you want it, and then actually assign grade level equivalencies, if that would help you, to each of these lessons. So if you do a locator and it comes back that a student is at the second grade level in numeracy, you could see which lessons would need to be assigned for someone starting at the second grade level for numeracy, probably backing up a little bit just to make sure that they were fresh before they progress. So if that's something that would be helpful, that's easy for us to pull together.
Like in terms of this document, I think that's exactly kind of what we were looking for in terms of what exactly is available without going down. There's something to be said about looking at something on paper or in a document kind of all put together rather than having to open many things up.
Exactly.
So we can configure this however you wanted it to be configured. We could do a column of grade level equivalency. We could do, however you want this information presented, because all of these are leveled based on the US reporting system. So we can even put the standard in there if you want to read the standard language, if that would be helpful. So it's really up to you how we configure something like this.
And
So this would start
Mitch,
at 0.5.
sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so that would be like the 1 to 6. That's
No,
what you're referring.
I'm talking about like grade level. If you wanted to know, like if we have a lesson on phonemic awareness, that would be 0.5.
Okay.
Like a kindergartner would start with, this is the letter A, this is the letter B.
Got it.
So we wouldn't give you the US leveling system. We would give you the grade level.
Okay.
So this is equivalent to 9th grade beginning GED preparation.
So, so another question I have, say like for this fundamental content, how many lessons in total does the fundamentals have? Like just the math, say, for
I hate
instance?
that question. I have to go.
But okay, so let's say there's 150 of them. Would we be able to customize it to 3 different three different classes or something?
Yes,
or levels?
actually customize each class based on the individual lesson itself as well. So if you had a cohort of students that all needed remediation and multiplication of whole numbers, you could grab those lessons, put it into a class and assign it to those specific students.
So Vanessa, you could also create a class for those people that come to you and say, I want to get a job in retail, right? So then you could create that and then have that as a class for anybody that came in and gave them that.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, we can go through and count all these. I don't know the number off the top of my head.
That's fair.
No need. I only have a rough idea of where we're sitting in terms of courses too.
We could also send you these manuals. I mean, these manuals walk you through not just the lesson content, but also how to use the Aztec platform to create students, how to create custom classes, how to tag students so that you can say, I want to know every student that's at the 3rd grade level and pull that into a report. So this manual walks you through all of the, I call it button mashing, which I know it's like not nice for my colleagues, but what do you click on the computer to actually make the system do what you want it to do?
Right.
And we were very curious about seeing kind of that admin side that our practitioners would be using, as both of our programs are e-channel, so our life is on the computer. They do spend a lot of time pulling reports individually and their caseload as a whole every week to review how they're progressing and stuff like that. So that back end is very important to our staff.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I've sent a request in for that to have one of our FSRs be able to set something up for you all to be able to view the admin side. So I'm going to follow up on that this afternoon to kind of figure out where that's at. And so we can
That's awesome.
something else.
Vanessa, thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to know what each of your organizations might look for in terms of the kinds of admin reports or just areas that they would need to have access to if there is a demo admin account. From Contact North's standpoint, we're the very much the macro level. We are here to support what the organizations are doing, but we don't have any students. These are their students and their programs, and we might need to have a sense of overall usage and numbers. It would be very helpful if we knew the numbers of registrants in any course, for example, and what is getting the most usage, so that we had a sense of what kinds of capacities we might need if we were to pursue this and get into a discussion about the licensing required. But I think the administrative tasks of these two organizations obviously have to drill down through the instructors to their individual students.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure that the FSR who does a demo for you of this shows you exactly what these reports show you. In the US, we're required to pretty much go down to the minute and second of a student's time in the system. But I think that even just for a teacher to be able to see that, Johnny logged into algebra and spent 30 seconds in a lesson, that's a discussion point with the student, because you can't learn anything in algebra in 30 seconds. But you can drill into that level of detail. You can see when the student is working, what time of day. You can split it out if it's during a class time, if you're doing synchronous or asynchronous, to see how much time they're studying outside of the class time versus in the class time. So a lot of these, we'll have the FSR that does this for you, walk you through all of the functionality of what the teachers and administrators can see.
For the dashboard that the learner sees, one of our Linda mentioned, she said there's a lot of information going on in there for our adult learners, especially people who are new to digital literacy. Can the dashboard be customized? Can things
Dashboard
be
is harder
taken
to
away?
It's harder to customize the dashboard, but we do have videos that train the students how to use the dashboard, that walk them through the clicks that they would need to do at a very basic level. To find your class, this is what you click on from the home screen. And those are audio enabled student directions. And those are going to be loaded so that the students will see them when they log in, so they can refresh their memory at any time.
So you did also bring up another relevant point, the audio pieces. There are definitely lessons that have audio and visual images, but there are some pieces that don't, as far as I could tell.
So on the academic side, meaning foundations, fundamentals, bridge, GED, etc., those all have audio that can be turned on or turned off. The life skill series, almost all of them have audio, and we're working on adding audio to those that are missing.
So I get the sense that both organizations are very interested in the kind of report you or overview that you showed us, Mitch, in terms of listing the content for any particular content area, whether it be fundamentals or whatever. Are there any other comments or any description of exactly what you'd need to see in there?
I think just for myself, I can only speak for myself, that breakdown of that document that you had for the fundamentals is kind of what I'm looking for, I'll be honest.
Okay.
I just need to know what topics you have to make sure that we're hitting the mark with what we're looking for our program specifically.
And seeing that admin side as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so are there a few different levels that's something that I'm going to want to ask of your I forget what you call it,
FSR.
Field service representative?
Yeah. I'm like acronym. I know it was an
I
acronym.
know.
Like, just because I know we're not really necessarily building courses, but like right now, there are some learners or some of our practitioners that have a higher level of access, that if they were the ones that were pulling different areas of the course, they would have a higher level or have more exposure to a broader area of that platform compared to our practitioners that assign to the learners just so that they are not changing any of the course content or changing any of the courses that we prescribe. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Do you have different levels like that, or is it just kind of like one?
I'm not sure if I understand. Can you repeat that? I'm
Like
sorry. Go ahead.
roles and permissions, like the teacher role versus the admin role versus a student role. So the different roles
Right.
and the
And what they can do.
permissions
You
that
got
go
it.
with those
Exactly.
roles. Yeah.
You got it.
Yep.
You're with me, Deanna.
I'm there. Yes. Oh, honey, this is a hot topic down here anyway. And people are always wanting what I call hybrid roles, right? Because I want this person to be able to do this and this, but I don't want anybody else to be able to do that. And then I want this person to. So yeah, we understand about roles and permissions. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So we can, everybody has different levels as far as accessibility or, however you want to do that. We can obviously work with you and figure those things out.
Wonderful. That's perfect. Yeah. So if you could forward the list to us, I think that's the next step for the
Okay.
hub for sure. And then looking at that admin side would be the next step for us as well.
Okay.
And Julie or Warren, are you on the same page, or do you have any other perspective on what you would next need?
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page. A couple things for me is just on the topic of the dashboards. Like when I was in there, and I don't know if it's just because it's a demo account, I don't know what level or role I have in the system right now, but there was an option where you could hide those different cards, I guess we could call them. So like the activity time graph, you can hide that. That can be removed from the dashboard.
Right, with the drop down arrows. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yep.
so is that just a setting that I'm doing on my account, or is that a setting that would spread out to all the learners?
So you have access right now to a student account, so you don't have access to any administrative rights.
Okay.
At this point. So what you're seeing is all the functionality that, a student would be able to do from their side. So if they want to minimize something or whatever the case may be, if it allows them to do that, they would have the ability to do so.
Okay, so
I guess
they'll
my
do that
question
on
then
their-
would be, can we control what things are dropped down when they open it?
From the standpoint of reporting, because I believe you're speaking more towards like the reporting tools or the actual course dashboard, right?
I think it's like the activity scores, like those
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
report areas.
Now, from a customization standpoint, I don't know if we can go that deep. Mitch, you might have more knowledge around that, like from a
On the student side or on the admin side?
I guess on the student side is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Students are only able to see what they've been assigned.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
you've been given access to everything. So you're seeing a huge list of stuff. The student would only see what the teachers assign them to do.
Okay.
And so usually the way that works, so Matt gave you access to this whole continuum of learning, right? Because he wanted you to be able to see the breadth and the spectrum. So normally what a student's going to come in and you're going to figure out kind of where they're at and what they need. And you're going to give them a much smaller snapshot. And then once they finish that, then you might give them another bit, right? But so you're going to be able to control how much of that's going to be on their dashboard.
Cool.
Julie, I just want to make sure there isn't anything else from your perspective.
There was just a couple of questions that Linda, I think, had wanted us to ask. It looks like she was probably looking at some of the GED content. One of the questions I think that maybe is a little bit important here. She said she'd like some more information on the GED Flash. Is it just practice testing? Where do they go for the learning content? And is that the GED prep content that's in the other? You're muted, Matt.
Yeah, sorry about that. So GED Flash is a product that we created in partnership with GED Testing Service. So it's basically it's a practice, type situation for students to gain more confidence, increase their scores, going into taking the actual operational exam. So there's thousands of questions embedded within GED Flash. Students get questions 10 at a time as far as questions go. They're variable item types, so they're technology enhanced, multiple choice, drag and drop, so on and so forth. They're also getting feedback as they're going through answering some of those questions as well, much like you see in our pre-tests and so on and so forth, our post-tests, I guess I should say. So they'll be able to get that feedback as they're going through to help build that confidence as they're taking GED Flash. And all of that was centered around the operational exam with GED.
But you're right. What do we always get asked for is additional practice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Always. In everything we do, we want more practice, and we get it. So really, that GED Flash component, they can go through the GED program proper and get instruction and get problems and things. But then when they need that additional, plus sometimes it's more a battle of student confidence than anything, where they'll tell you, no, I'm not ready. And you're like, yeah, you are ready. No, you're not. Okay, let's prove it to yourself that you're ready. Let's sit here and go through some of the problems in Flash, and then we'll help build that confidence too. So it's additional practice. It's that building that fluency, all those things that go into making sure they do well when they take the test.
Yeah, practice makes perfect, right? As we all say.
We
So
built
the
a Flash program in partnership with the GED testing service. They vetted every question to make sure that it aligned to not only the test blueprint, but also the constructs of the test. So it's really meant as that final polishing of student skills, as well as test prep. How do you handle seeing a real test question?
So the GED prep is not really content about the GED itself. It's more, here, let's prepare for the testing.
The GED program is the content for the GED. GED Flash is more flat. It's like a digital flashcard of questions. And that's the program that we built with the GED testing service.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something then, because I'm currently logged in and I'm trying to look at the lessons for GED prep solution.
Yep. So that's the instructional piece.
So when I don't even know where to, sorry. Okay, so I'm not, as I said, I haven't taken a lot of time, but I can't seem to find where the lessons in that particular piece are.
For GED Flash, are you talking about specifically?
No, she's talking about the GED proper, not Flash, but the lessons. So Matt can walk you through on and show you where to find everything.
Yep.
Okay.
You want to screen share, Julie? Do you want to throw it up on your screen real quick?
Yeah, didn't we talk, that'd be great. Didn't we talk about how GED Flash is embedded in, so they branch out when they need more help, or no?
No. So GED Flash is a separate, product as far as series go, or separate licenses, so to speak, that would give the student, grant student access to be able to utilize specific.
I think you were talking about the video library, Courtney, where they could go and watch a video, and it was kind of like you could say, oh, you need to go watch this video.
That's
or whatever.
right. Sorry. Okay.
So do you want to show us what you're... Somebody was jamming.
Sorry, that's my phone. Is my sorry, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
So the one that you have up on the first row is GED Flash. So that's the review program that's going to give students sets of 10 questions in each of the subject areas. It's sort of a final review or a preparation for actually sitting for a test. It's very much mirrored to the actual GED test. There's no instruction in Flash. It will give you the correct answers and an explanation of the test question, but it's not going to teach you the concept that's being assessed. In your second row where it says Kaplan GED, that's the instructional program for the GED. And that's going to have the lessons, the full instruction, the videos from Kaplan as our partner.
Practice
that's the full instructional program.
Right.
So where the lessons are found under the learning plan, under
Learning plan,
assignment.
yeah,
Go to
under the
learning
learning plan.
plan.
And now we're right
And if you
here, this
scroll
next
down.
activity.
Scroll down.
I can't scroll.
Why is this not showing her learning plan?
That's weird.
You did the locator, right, Julie?
I did.
There.
Can you go back up
Julie,
to
I think that your drop down on your, like on my lesson plan, I think your drop down thing is put up. Oh,
the, there
yeah,
we
there you
go.
go.
There we go.
Sorry, I just seen it because I'm like, mine looks different than hers.
No, it's all
So
good.
just as a point about what we're looking at, each of the anytime a student logs into GED for the first time, they're going to have a computer literacy course. We want to make sure that they understand how to use the hardware and the software that they're sitting in front of before they start the academics. They don't have to do it. Of course, we recommend it, especially in a distance learning COVID era, and particularly where the GED is now delivered only on computer, and they've done away with most of the paper pencil testing. So
In
we
the
just
States.
Yeah.
and then if you scroll down, you'll see the academics start after the computer literacy course.
Okay.
And again, this is where we've partnered with Kaplan, and you'll find those Kaplan embedded videos that are taught by master educators, very high quality, high definition. The student can always go back to those videos if they want. Where you're really going to see your heavier, I guess, video lessons is going to be in math, is where you're going to see a lot of that, and then probably in some of the science as well, is where you'll see some heavier video lessons.
Okay.
So just, can I ask a question about that computer literacy lesson?
Sure.
Is it in all lessons across all programs?
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, some I think it's Bridge might have an extra lesson that's like improving your study skills. So there's different like bonus type, materials embedded in some of those different series.
I'm just curious if it was something that would be consistent, I guess, regardless of the programming that was being assigned.
Sure.
And I just had one more question. I know we've talked about it a few times, Matt. That video library that you were talking about, is that the school library in our menu, or how does that work?
Video library, can you be a little bit more specific?
Where you said, oh, if they needed a specific video, so they were the Kaplan ones that are embedded in, but you could get separately. I know it was a separate funded thing.
So yeah, I mean, so basically what they would have to do is go back into that lesson.
Okay.
And they would scroll through and go back to that particular video.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, this can kind of go around the customization aspect of things, being able to do certain things on, that would make it, I guess, as far as accommodations for your students and your learner population and what's going to work best.
Cool. I was just thinking, because sometimes I know currently, like if some of our learners say they did a lesson on, I don't know, pre-algebra, a pre-algebra concept, right? And they were struggling. We would send them a video link if they had to review something, right?
Right.
And so it was just trying to figure out if that would be another resource that we could send off that way. Like if you could easily be
Like
in
a
a
link
thing,
to
like
it?
go back and review this, because I
Yeah,
know
like-
that it redirects it, right?
Like a
Within your
link to it,
software.
kind of. Yeah. So
Yeah.
kind of what you're explaining is you probably found some content online or something that you've
Yeah.
kind of grabbed in. So
Mhm.
basically what the Kaplan video lessons do is take away the, you having to go out there and vet new videos,
Which is nice.
quality and all those different things. So, but again, the student can obviously go back in those lessons and be able to view those particular videos. I don't think there's a way that we can provide a link to where they could link out. So you could tell a student, here's the link, if you're struggling with this, go to this particular video.
But it had the explanation, right? So does
Right.
it take them right back to that portion of the lesson again, or is it the whole lesson? I was trying to remember, because
So
you
they'll
showed
have
us
to-
that one example.
They'll have to click through and they'll
Mhm.
eventually, so they'll go through a couple, and as they're clicking through, eventually they'll come up on whatever they're looking
Okay.
for, the Pythagorean
Okay.
theorem or whatever the case may be, that video.
Okay.
Yeah, videos
Perfect.
are all placed at points of instruction within the lesson.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
So it sounds like next steps are to get you on a call with an FSR who can actually walk you through, give you some demo of the admin side as well as the teacher side. And then we can pull together whatever documents you all need to have a better understanding of all of the standards within the program. Am I understanding where we are?
Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on all that stuff on, my side of things with Mitch and with Deanna as well, making sure that we can get these documents out to you in a timely manner. And then as far as, like we said, next steps would be a meeting with our FSR, who's going to walk you through the admin side and talk about, some more details around what certain things you could do specifically in creating custom courses, so on and so forth. And then we can go from that point, forward and schedule another quick call as far as follow up to that and continue moving forward.
And we'll have a meeting with the FSR before they schedule it,
exactly,
so that you won't have to go through the whole discussion about
right.
what
We don't want that to happen again.
What is the OALCF? They'll
Right.
know all of that before the call.
Right.
We very much appreciate that.
Sure.
And of course, you've been extremely proactive, and I appreciate everyone's time, and I'm very cognizant that it's an extremely busy time of year. What's realistic in terms of the amount of time you need to take on your end to follow up with your FSR and team? And then I need to ask my colleagues here what's realistic in terms of their availability. Is this pre-Christmas? Is it post-Christmas?
Oh, we can have an FSR prepped in a day. It's just a matter of what your schedule is.
Okay, folks, what do you say? Because you know what's on your plates. Of course, I'm waiting with bated breath for our funder to come down with deadlines for business planning at any moment. We have no idea when that's going to happen, but yes, like everyone else, I know there's lots of balancing going on. So what does the group want us to consider in terms of realistic timing?
The amount of time is probably looking about carving out like about an hour to kind of, point you in that direction. Obviously depends on how many questions you all have. It could be longer. But that's typically about the amount of time that an FSR would need just to explain the various things to you.
Okay. I'm just looking at my calendar, and I think something personally, I would prefer to kind of keep the momentum going before the holidays, so while it's fresh with us, but something the week of the 14th might be
Okay.
doable for us. Next week's pretty full.
What I was going to say.
How about you, Julie?
Warren and
Are we on the
Julie,
same page?
any idea?
Yeah, I think we'll need a bit more time I know I'll need more time to just kind of go through the systems a little bit. Next week is pretty busy for us, but I think the week of the 14th works well for us, but I think we would want to do it earlier on in the week.
Sure.
Okay.
If that's okay.
And may I just look at my calendar to see what that week looks like on my end? Early in the week, for good learning anywhere is best the week of the 14th. Any caveats on that for you, Courtney or Vanessa? Do you think?
No. Probably like Tuesday afternoon would be good window for us.
I agree.
Okay.
Or even Wednesday. Wednesday's looking pretty
Wednesday
breezy.
anytime. Yeah.
Wednesday's looking better for me. Would that be too late in the week for you, Warren and Julie?
No, I think that works. Probably the afternoon would be preferred, but we have to do the morning. That's fine too.
Doesn't matter to us.
Would that work on your end, Matt? Say another 1 o'clock meeting?
Yeah.
Wednesday the 16th?
Yeah. So what I'll do is just connect with the FSR folks or a person that'll be assigned to your account, and then I'm confident that we can get that taken care of. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
Awesome. Can we expect those other documents prior to that, Matt? Do you think that's reasonable or no?
Mitch, I'm going to defer to you on that.
I mean, if you're comfortable getting the document that I showed you, we can
Yeah.
send that right away. I mean,
Sure.
and if custom, we would want to have a discussion about what.
Oh,
you would-
no.
Yeah.
Just to give us a rough idea if you have it for each one, that's
Yep.
perfect, Mitch.
Those are all ready to go. We can send those to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or concerns before we close things up today? I'm very appreciative of everybody's input here.
Yes, definitely.
I think I'm fine for today. I may send some more questions as I kind of get to look at a little bit more content. I've
For
looked at a
sure.
few lessons, so I like how
Okay.
simple the slides are, which is fantastic, for sure. So as I get through more, I may have some more questions.
That's good.
But you clearly haven't gotten to the 90 slide lessons for World War I. So
Ooh,
I hated history in high school anyway, so I'll probably skip through those anyways.
Right on.
All right.
You know, Sarah, just one thing real quick. If you want to just go ahead and set up that call, just so it's on our calendars now, we can do that. And then I can just, once we figure out on our side who that field service representative is going to be, I can have you add that person to the call.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll help
I'll-
you with that, Matt. Yeah.
I'll be happy to do that. And Deanna and Mitch, do you want to join that call or are
Yes,
you happy?
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. And I thank you all again very much for your input today and for answering all of our questions. I wish everybody a good and a healthy, safe weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Looking
so
forward
much.
to
Thanks,
the weekend.
Sarah.
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
Thank you.
Nice
care,
meeting
guys.
y'all. Bye.